Oculus is one of those films that was recommended to me because people said that I would absolutely love how twisted it is. And I have to be brutally honest and say that it was, at the time, one of the best films I'd ever seen. And even now, when I think about it, I still can't get over how gripping and thrilling, just outright twisted it is. This was released in 2013. I'm not sure if I saw it then. I think it might have been a couple of years later. And one of the main reasons why I wanted to watch it when it was recommended is because Karen Gillan is in it, and I very much loved Karen Gillan at the time. So there won't be any spoilers in this, I don't think. So I think you're safe to listen if you haven't seen the film, but I do encourage you to see the film if you can. So the plot from IMDb says, a woman tries to exonerate her brother who was convicted of murder by proving that the crime was committed by a supernatural phenomenon. Now that is a plot. Sounds very interesting. It's directed by Mike Flanagan, written by Mike Flanagan, and it's really interesting as a narrative. I think it flows very well. But for me, I wasn't that taken by the narrative. It's not the narrative that I remember most. It's not the narrative that made me fall in love with this film. It was actually the visuals. And that is often the case with a thriller film. With like a good plot, a good psychological plot is great, but with this kind of film, it really relies heavily on some of the visuals. And without going into too much detail, I don't want to give anything away, but there's a bit of parallels going on here, and there's a mirror, and they can see things, but then they don't know, and as a viewer, you don't always know whether they're looking at the reality or the supernatural aspect, and things they do in one will impact the other, and it can have detrimental effects on the characters, and it is brilliant, and it did keep me on the edge of my seat. It is very gripping. Obviously, a good plot, a good narrative needs a good cast, and Karen Gillan plays Kaylie, and she's brilliant in this. I have no complaints whatsoever. Tim Russell, her brother, is played by Brenton Thwaites, who I don't think I've seen him in anything else other than this, but I did very much enjoy his performance. For a lot of the time, it's just the two of them, certainly as the film really gets into the nitty-gritty, and they work so well together on screen. They really drive the plot forward, and I think the way their characters respond to the situations as they progress, their actions are very realistic, very believable. And I won't tell you the ending. I won't say what happens. But all I will say is, to this day, that ending still gives me chills. It's one of my favourite thriller endings ever. So if you haven't seen Oculus, please do. It is incredible. It is gripping. As I said, the narrative itself, the concept didn't really bother me either way. But when the supernatural elements come in, and there are a lot of questionable aspects, that for me is when it really, really worked. So please do see it if you haven't. If you have seen it, I would love to know what you think of it. It's rated quite highly. I think it's got a 6 point something on IMDb. It has let me just check this, 6.5 out of 10 on IMDb, which is not bad. Most people I speak to about it have, a lot of positive things to say about it. Hopefully, if you see it, you will feel the same too.